chair of the Black Ink Festival this year, and I am so happy to be here moderating our workshop collaboration with influencers. And the premise of this workshop is basically that the author-influencer relationship is more important than ever. With so many activities competing for a reader's time, having influencers in your corner to help amplify you and your work can pay unimaginable dividends. And so we have some great panelists this morning. I'm going to let them introduce themselves and talk about their works, but I want to just give their names. We have Janelle Marvin. She is an Instagram influencer. We have Cherrie Woods, Eclectic PR. She is PR and publicity service. And we have Angela K. Austin, an author and podcaster. So good morning, ladies. How y'all doing?
Good morning. Wow.
Good morning. Cherrie, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your work.
Okay. I am a book publicist. And I'm also an independent author, so I know both sides of this writing world. I've been in PR for about 16 years, and the last 6 years I've been working with primarily independent authors. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear us?
Okay. Yes, I've been primarily working with independent or self-published authors for the last 6 years. And I've just been helping them sort of get business ready so that they can be competitive in this very busy author market.
Great. Thank you. And Janelle, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Good morning. Hi, I'm Janelle. I am a mom, a teacher, and I have a Bookstagram account, which is like books plus Instagram. And so I run an account in that bookish community, and I share what I'm reading, what my kids are reading, what my students are reading. And in that space, I just engage with other readers, and it's just fun to talk about books.
Great. Welcome and thank you. And Angela, is it Angela K or just Angela?
Angela's fine. Thanks.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. What are you writing and what are you podcasting about?
So I am a indie author. I've been published since 2009. And somewhere along the way, I decided that I would use my knowledge of marketing because my career for the past 25 years has been marketing. And so I've worked across a few different industries as a marketer. And as a result of that background and being in the indie publishing world, I decided I would combine those things. And a couple of years ago, I decided I would start working more so as a podcaster and YouTuber. So over the past year or so, I've been working with indie authors to help promote the work that we are all doing, and to help build our platform so we can have a stronger presence in the world.
Great, thank you.
I forgot to answer that personally. I write women's fiction and romance.
Yes. Okay, so you guys are in 3 very different spaces. So let's start with how you got to the influencer portion of your space or the influencer level of your areas. So Janelle, we'll start with you. How did you find yourself as an influencer?
That term is kind of, I know we all feel differently about it. I still don't consider myself to be like an influencer. I mean, I influence people to read certain books. I've had people tell me that they picked up a book because of a post I made or my enthusiasm. But I feel like the title just holds so much weight. But as far as just being in the Bookstagram community, period, a couple of years ago, I just decided to start taking pictures of what I was reading, either writing a review about it or sharing my excitement for an upcoming book. I frequent the library, so documenting my trips with my kids to pick out their books or sharing what we were reading aloud in my classroom was just a way to engage with other readers and get ideas about other titles that I may have overlooked or never even heard about. And so over time, the community just grew for me. And so that's pretty much how it got started. Just taking a picture of a book and posting it with a couple of hashtags.
Great. And how about you, Angela? How did you find yourself being labeled an influencer?
As I said, for the past 25 years or so, I've worked as a marketer. And so as digital marketing became more and more a tool that I used in my regular career, I started to just want to figure out how to use it in my indie publishing life as well. And so, that led me to a natural course of.
Oh, I think we've lost connection with Angela. So we're going to put her on pause while we work that out. And Cherrie,
Sure.
can you answer that question? How you found yourself labeled as an
I'm not sure.
influencer?
Did it just drop? What did it do? I'm not sure.
Cherrie, can you hear us?
Okay, sure. It's interesting because that certainly was not my intent. I was a member of a writing guild in Maryland, and when I identified that my background was in PR, I literally had a lineup of authors asking me, or telling me actually their woes with working with different publicists. And from then they asked me to, people asked, please put together a workshop for us. So I did that. And then word got out that I was doing a workshop. And then I was asked, can you put together a book for us? So I did write a book, Where Do I Start? 10 PR Questions and Answers to Guide Self-Published Authors. And then people started to call and said, would I work with authors? So in the past 6 years, I went from sort of doing PR to organization to not just having clients, but becoming the PR guru for self-published authors. I do workshops. I do presentations. I'm doing panels. And I guess what I came to realize why I became an influencer was because there's a real need for PR people or publicists to work with independently published authors. They don't typically have access to a professional publicist. And so I've become sort of the go-to both on the media side and on the client side, and just at conferences to talk about what's happening primarily in the indie publishing world.
Okay, thank you. And Angela, we lost you in the middle of your answer. So could you go back a little bit and just tell us again why you or how you found yourself with the influencer label?
Yeah, sorry about that. I saw it go red, and I think it just went red again. So we're gonna play with it. Like I said, I've been a marketer for 25 years, and digital marketing is a huge part of it. And so social influence and being able to become an influencer myself, which I use loosely, kind of like Janelle was saying, but I use that term only to mean that within my space, within indie publishing, within self-publishing, I have a certain amount of a base because of myself being an author. And so I try to build upon that. And instead of paying someone to do it for myself, I do it for myself, and I open that platform up to others who are indie authors so we can all build together and promote and grow. And so I use the term social influencer loosely, but I do use it.
Great. And before I get to my next question, I want to remind our viewers that if you have a question, use the chat box. It's found on the right side of your screen. Post it in the chat box, and I'll make sure, or the Q&A box, and I'll make sure to ask that question throughout, or ask many questions, hopefully, throughout our workshop. Let's talk about Influencer Flex. What has your platform enabled you to do that has either surprised you or fueled you? So, and I'll let whoever wants to jump in first. But how has your platform allowed you to voice things differently, and what is fueling you right now?
Just to Cherrie, can you repeat the question? I got cut off a little bit.
So I want to talk about your influencer flex and how your platform has enabled you to do different things and really have an influence in your neighborhood, in your community. Like, what's the flex of being an influencer? What has it allowed you to do that will impact the folks that you have a voice with?
Okay, I can answer that. It's interesting because in this region anyway, it was really, really difficult for the average independent author to get any sort of mainstream media coverage. And a lot of it was because, there's sort of this unknown for the average person. And how do I get on TV? Do I have to be a big deal? Can I do it myself? And there were actually media outlets that were not interviewing independent authors because they felt that most of the time they weren't ready for interviews, or some had the misunderstanding that all authors are introverts and would probably not be good at interviews. So there was that sort of assumption. So when I started booking clients, and also I started getting asked to do interviews in the media and explaining sort of the ins and outs being an indie author myself, so some of those walls came down, and whenever one of my clients would get on TV, they were always prepared. So a lot of those stereotypes went out the window, and I think it's just because, particularly as indie authors, again, you don't have access to, what you would if you were with a traditional publisher, and so I provide those services and make sure clients get media training, so that at least the media in the region weren't getting some of the experiences that they were before. So I think in many ways I've helped dispel a lot of those, assumptions about independent authors, including like the quality of their books and would they be able to do good interviews. So it's given me that opportunity to really speak on behalf of, a very large growing population of authors.
Okay, thank you. Angela, let's go with you. What's your flex been since you've become an influencer?
I'll say, honestly, probably some of the doors I've been able to open to have conversations with leaders in publishing, whether they are indie leaders or traditional leaders, and being able to share that with people who are in the world of indie so they can see where they fit. I've been able to have conversations with people from a Beverly Jenkins to people at the Fussy Librarian, and open up some of that to people who are indie, so it's, they're not so afraid, and they understand that there can be a clear path of them. There's a way for them to make money. There's a way for them to build their platform, that what they do is legitimate. To piggyback on what Cherrie said a little bit, I have interviews on my YouTube channel with librarians, and one of the things that those librarians talk about is indie writing, how they would refuse indie books when this game first got started, 15 years ago, because they doubted the quality and the caliber of the product. But because there has been so much change and indie authors are taking their craft seriously, they now welcome that. So being able to share those conversations with people. So honestly, I think my flex is just being able to open doors that people, because I am a marketer by trade, that people may not know how to open. And once I open those doors, I share what I've learned with other people.
Thank you. Janelle, how about you?
I have to say, my opportunities have definitely increased as my platform has grown. I know a lot of publishers, especially the big five, they prefer to work with influencers or accounts that have a larger following, because they feel like, rightfully so, that the book will get more attention with a wider audience. But I mean, some of the things that I've been really excited about in this position is connecting with the publishers, connecting with authors. I still get excited when authors either comment on a post or send me a DM about their work or about my review. Um, it never, ever, ever gets old. I think one of my biggest fangirl moments was when Jacqueline Woodson liked one of my posts that I made about her book, and like just those types of connections. I still get excited about. There have been some paid opportunities that have been presented to me, which I don't do too often. Actually, I've only done once, and it was more work than I actually wanted to do, so I prefer not to. I really like to just read what I want when I want and just and I think you just have to determine as an influencer what you're willing to do and what you're at capacity to do. I know that in the Bookstagram community alone, especially for new people joining the space, receiving ARCs is a huge perk. And an ARC, for those who don't know, is an advanced reader copy of a book. So there's just this special feeling that you get when you have a book in your hand that doesn't publish for months, and you get to read it before the world does, and you get to engage with just that small group of people who have the book as well. The publishers and authors, I believe, are very creative with their packaging. If a book has a larger budget for marketing, then you'll receive certain boxes that have bookish merch in it. It ranges from water bottles to I've received sweatshirts to cute little pins that you can put like on a denim jacket. I received like fake flowers that went with like the cover of a book and added it to my home decor. Angie Thomas just released Concrete Rose, a YA author. She wrote The Hate You Give. I'm sure everyone knows her. And one of the perks with that bookish box for the influencers who opted in was to receive a pair of sneakers. And it was just like Sakani teamed up with the publisher, and it was just amazing. So those little things kind of add to your enthusiasm and excitement over the book. And then once you dig deeper, and then you can share that connection with your followers. But honestly, as of late, I'd say since this past summer and with the recent, like social uprisings and the global BLM movement, I'd have to say that the biggest opportunity that I've had with this platform that has grown significantly, and a lot of it has to do with a lot of people wanting to follow more Black influencers lately, but just having a place to kind of use my voice. People follow me for books. They probably come for reviews, but in my stories, I try to show a little bit of myself in other ways. I'll probably dance or show something my kids are doing, but I also like to share local and national calls to action. I like to share social justice news, and I like to share anything related to what we're experiencing now, so that not only are people entertained and they're finding great new titles that they want to read, but they're staying informed. And I make it very clear on my page that it is a place and a space where Black Lives Matter, love is love. I'm always promoting LGBTQ books. And so I just make that very clear so that when people come, they know that it's a safe space, and that if they disagree with any of those stances, then they can just hit unfollow. And I think that's the beauty in it, because while I have these opportunities and I have this community, it's something that I can curate. I have the opportunity to follow and unfollow people based on whatever makes me happy. And I feel like followers and we all need to know that, like, if something doesn't sit well with you, or if it doesn't feed you in any way or fulfill you in any way, then it's okay to unfollow. And I've lost tons of followers whenever I speak out about police brutality, or I share things about poverty or over policing of Blacks or systemic racism or anything like that that's not related to a book or doesn't sit well with certain people. And then it's just like the followers drop. But I think because I don't focus too much on it, I mean, honestly, yes, I love having a larger platform. I feel like there's more people to reach. But as long as I'm staying true to myself, I feel like the opportunities will come, and that's all I can do. And so I think I've just grown not only in that way, but just on a personal, like on a deeper personal level. And so That's it. I ramble. You got to stop me, Luana.
Well,
I'll
thank
just
you.
go
But
off.
that actually leads me to a question for the other two panelists. Kay, Angela, I'm sorry. How do you, because it's your platform, it is your voice, and you found your niche, so to speak. So how do you handle folks who may not be following you for the best intentions, or occasionally want to air their disagreement with your point of view or your platform? How do you manage that, Angela?
Oh, honestly, my writing and my platform are very similar. So, as I said, I'm in the space of women's fiction primarily, although I do romance. But if you pick up one of my books, they are very much progressive, diverse, and I deal with lots of issues, from transgender issues or other things in LGBTQIA community to issues of Black American woman, whatever it may be, issues for women over 40, all kinds of different issues that I tackle. And so my platform is not different, although my platform welcomes all voices. And so I will interview all types of people from various backgrounds and, who have various types of writing or whatnot. My platform is always very diverse, all voices, own voices. So I don't think you're going to actually seek me out unless you're open to that, because my platform is not different than my writing, which was intentional for me, of course, because that's the space that I'm building out, is that type of platform. And I didn't want to have people find me and then they do object to what I'm doing. So, I'm one of those people. I've been locked out of Twitter until I take down a post because I'm extremely political. But yet, my books also deal with things like the Civil War, because I write in the historical space as well. So I've written historical romances that might be controversial for some people. So my platform is very solidly built out in a space that I'm extremely comfortable in. And so if you disagree with it, you probably didn't find me. And if you accidentally found me, it's all good. You can leave just like you came. It's fine. I do not object to you objecting and leaving, but I try to be extremely clear in the tone of everything that I do. So as a marketer, I talk a lot about tone and I talk about messaging. And so whether you pick up one of my books or you come to one of my platforms, be it my podcast or my YouTube channel, it's all going to have a similar, extremely similar tone. So it won't feel foreign to you, and hopefully it won't push you away.
Great, thank you. And Cherrie, how about you? The trolls are coming. How do you manage that?
It's interesting because I would say one of the main goals for me in terms of being on social media, I would say, is really to educate a lot of the Black independent authors on what's happening in the mainstream world, and encourage them to get more involved, because I think one of the things that I'd like to see more Black authors do is not limit themselves. Oftentimes I do consultations where people say, well, I think my book is just for Black women or for Black readers. And I say, no, not necessarily. They're like, well, how would I even reach those, the mainstream population? I provide that bridge. And at the same time, I also have clients that aren't African American, and oftentimes they are now being exposed to some of the authors that I work with that are Black, and I really try to encourage kind of the crossover, because I think there are things, because most of my background is working in mainstream, I really try to stretch everyone's understanding in terms of, we're all authors, and even if it's written by a Black author and it has a Black theme, that's still beneficial for other readers. And so I think I get a lot of questions more so than conflict in terms of people interacting with me. I think I create curiosity, and I do get a lot of direct messages asking, well, how would I reach out to this group and that group? So I kind of feel like I serve as a bridge. I can't say that I get a lot of controversy with the things that I post or share. So far, I knock on wood.
Thank you. So we do have a few questions, and I want to be cognizant of the time. Some of it is for each person individually, so I'll ask those last. How does someone move into the influencer space? How do you become an influencer? So Cherrie, let's start with you.
Okay, well, I didn't really start out with the plan to become an influencer. I think my knowledge and my style of communication and, just wanting to share information and empower authors. And I think just honestly, my sincerity in just wanting to ensure that, for me anyway, that primarily Black authors understand the publishing world. It's great to be an author. It's great to write books, but you've got to understand the business of publishing. And that's kind of been my goal. And because I ensure that I stay up to date and that I share as much information as I can, it's just sort of happened, where I'm even being reached out to on Instagram, asking, telling me that I'm an influencer and would I be willing to promote certain items. And so, I didn't realize that I had become an influencer, but I have, and I take that role very seriously, and I just continue to do what I do.
Awesome. Thank you. Angela, how about you? What would you suggest or tell someone who's trying to move into the influencer space?
I would think I would probably start out by saying they first have to define what that means for them. So I am an indie author, and my space is I promote indie authors, right? And I promote that across 2 or multiple platforms because I use a complete social media marketing mix when I'm promoting myself and them. But the platforms where I bring them into my space are primarily YouTube, my podcast, and IG. So if being a social influencer is something that you want to do, you first have to define, what is my space? What am I going to do? Does that mean that you're going to become, someone who is a host of a show, someone who has YouTube, whatever? Define what it is, and then figure out the platforms that are your strength. Don't say that you're just going to post on Facebook and Twitter. What's your marketing strategy behind it, right? What times of day, what do those posts look like? Yada, 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 right? If you're saying that you're going to have a YouTube channel, how frequently are you going to do the YouTube channel? Once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week? What time of day are you going to post? What does your graphics look like when you promote your YouTube channel? So if you're going to become a social influencer, I think you have to understand that behind that is a marketer. And to piggyback on what Cherrie said, behind that is understanding the business of whatever it is that you're trying to promote or influence, right? So social influencer, there's a word left off of there a lot. It's social influencer marketer for me, is how I think of it. So you have to understand the business and the marketing that underlies it, because otherwise you're not influencing anything, because this is what's going to support this so that it grows. And you have to figure out if you're going to be dedicated to it, because it's not going to be some overnight thing. You're going to start out, you may get 1 or 2 people reacting to your posts. So, you're going to have to figure out, like, how long are you going to, what's your timeline? So probably those would be a couple of tips. It would be to figure out what it is that you're really trying to do. What is your social influencer marketer space? What's your timeline? What are your platforms? You know, who are the people already working in that space? How can you connect with them and partner? You know, I don't know. So those would probably be some of my tips to start with, you know, but I could probably talk about that forever because I am a marketer and I can talk. But that's probably where I would start is figure out what it is that you are trying to, what space are you trying to own? What are your platforms? Who are your partners? And what's the time that you're willing to dedicate to it? Because it's not overnight.
Thank you. Janelle, how about you?
I couldn't agree more with the tips already shared. Those are great. I would definitely start off, like Angela said, by identifying what it is that you want to share. Specifically in the bookish community, a lot of people, I mean, you'll see a wide range of types of photos that are taken or things that are shared, and you can determine um, which genre you want to focus on, if you want to get really specific, or if you'll be review based, or do you want to share just quotes? Do you want to share bookish merch? Do you just figuring out what it is that you like to do, I think is important, and then making sure that you're being yourself. As your account grows, and it will grow. For most people, it grows slowly, and um, for Black, Indigenous, and people of color, it grows even slower. Is that a word? I'm surrounded by authors. Yes, slower is a word, but am I using it correctly? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it will grow even more slowly or slower. Slower. So let's go with that. And I think a lot of publishers realize that, and that's a lot of that has to do with the BIPOC influencers using their voices to call it out. And so just be aware that there are some privileges that come with being an influencer. I don't think a lot of people speak about that. There's privilege in having daylight to take a bright photo that will attract viewers. There's privilege in living near, one of my friends and I had this conversation months ago. There's privilege in living near cute coffee shops or cobblestone streets or these, your surrounding areas to get these photos. Or if you have the privilege to have, if you want to include yourself in the photos and you have appealing clothing. I mean, there are so many things, and people like what they like. And so I would just say don't get discouraged if you're not reaching a certain milestone at a particular time. Honestly, I was at maybe a quarter of the followers I have now for the first 3 years. And it wasn't until this recent summer where I had a huge influx of people coming along for the journey. And I just had to really remind myself to remain true to what it is I wanted to share. So being yourself, if it's a bookish influencer stance, then just read what you want when you want, because the pressure can definitely take over. I've found myself with deadlines and calendars, and I was like, hold up, this is not my job. Like, I just need to step back, close this all out, and start over. And just be aware of what you're willing to do and what you're able to do, because it should be fun. It should be fun. A lot of people do have the influencer position as a source of income, and if that's what you're doing, then know what you are willing to commit to and how much time you're going to dedicate to it. But if it's just for fun, keep it that way. Keep it that way. And lastly, I'll say that engagement and community are huge. It's not a good look when people expect others to like and follow, but they're not doing the same in return. It's also not a good look when you're liking and following just to get likes and follows. Over the course of the years, I've built community with people to the point where we are sending voice DMs while cooking dinner, or I know a lot of influencers who have met in person when it was safe to do so, and had meetups. People, we know each other's kids. We celebrate birthdays, and it's just find your group and start there, and then it'll just grow over time. And just give it time. It will not happen overnight. It will not. And so just be patient and have fun. Those are my tips.
Thank you. And Cherrie, I want to ask you the same question. And I also want to follow up because there are a lot of questions about how people can connect with each of you. And so as we start to wind down, I would like you all to also talk about how you collaborate with others and how folks who are watching this workshop will be able to connect with you. So Cherrie, tell us a little bit about how folks can get started and then lead us into the wind down.
And well, again, I didn't intentionally decide to become an influencer, but I think what Janelle said is important, and I always say this to my clients as well. To become an overnight success, it takes 10 years. Now, I don't think it takes necessarily 10 years to become an influencer, but there's no sort of quick fix to it. There's a lot of people who are intending to be an influencer, and I think intent is good. I also, just as I tell my author clients, I say pick 2 to 3 authors, preferably in your genre. So I would say to influencers, pick 2 to 3 influencers that maybe are in the field that you want to be influential in, and pick successful ones and really pay attention to what they're doing. I also say imitate, don't duplicate. And again, consistency is key, because if you want to be an influencer, you're going to be watched. And don't be naive about that. People are watching your every move, particularly when you choose to do it. So be aware of that. Be consistent. Again, follow a template that's similar. There's sort of no original anything that much anymore. Be consistent. Know that you're being watched. And just keep going. It's not going to happen overnight again. Nothing really ever does. I think we just start to hear about people when they've reached that stage. And be intentional and be clear and set your goals, and then learn patience, because that's a big part of how you get to the top.
So how can people, the folks who are watching, how can they reach out and collaborate with you? Cherrie, you still with us?
Hello?
Hey, can you hear me? Okay, I think we're having a little trouble. So Janelle, how can folks connect with you? What are your handles? What are the requirements to collaborate?
I can be found on Instagram at Janelle Nicole Reads, and I'll type that in the chat. Requirements, I don't really have any requirements. Some people do. I just, when someone presents an opportunity or inquires about me reading their book, whether it's traditionally published or independently published, I just do like a self-assessment and see where I am, what I'm at capacity to do. But I would say, as far as independent authors that reach out, because I know that someone asked the question about that relationship between independent authors and influencers. I think it would be a great idea to find that Bookstagram community, follow a couple of accounts, engage with readers, and if you are sending a DM, whether DM or email, just personalize it. I think that makes a huge difference. I received a lot of messages. It was just like, hey, here's my book. Check it out at abc.com. And it was like, wait, did you not check my stories and see that I got 3 kids who need to do this and I have to do, like, or do you know me? Like, you know what I mean? So I just think it would be a good idea for authors to kind of get an idea of who they're asking to read the book, and just be respectful of time too, because we know that the publishing industry is not like this huge wealth of, this well of wealth for authors nor booksellers, with the profit margin being so low. But I think if we work together we can amplify the voices that need to be heard, the ones that are often overlooked, the ones who need more support. But we do have to be, we do have to honor the time of readers, because reading takes time. Writing honest, thoughtful reviews takes time. Taking a picture, getting that light right, posting it takes time. Engaging with the comments that come on the post takes time. And so if the author is aware and willing to honor the time and does so in a more approachable and personalized way, I think that's a great start to the potential partnership. Because there have been a lot of messages that I've received where it was just, you could tell it was kind of like a copy and paste, and they didn't really care whether I read it or not, or they just wanted what they wanted, and it was kind of like a delete, and not in a rude way, just because I have to protect my time and space just as they do. And so I think if we just all respect each other's time, and remember that a partnership means that there's going to be a two-way street. It can't just be take. And that could be, that partnership can be played out in a number of ways. It doesn't always have to be monetary. Sometimes I'm dissatisfied with receiving the book. I connected with, where is he? Oh, where's the book? In West Mills by Deshaun Charles, I believe, on Instagram. And it was way back when the book was first coming out. And I just loved the way he approached, and the book was mailed like within 2-3 days. And I was like, why is this book not on the bestseller? It was just like an amazing, and lo and behold, before I knew it, like all these awards were coming in. He was blowing up. He forgot about little old me. But it was just like, I had that connection with him, and I got to connect with that book and share it on my platform. And he also, did it in a way where he was respectful of readers' time, and he just took it seriously.
Thank you.
You never know.
Thank you. I need to quickly because we're winding down. So, Angela, we have a question about how can someone be on your podcast? And so if someone's interested in being a guest on your podcast, how can they reach you?
I put my links in the chat, my link tree, and that'll give you access to all of it, and you can just email me. But you can email me at angela@angelakaustin.com, and and we will go from there. Set it up, make it happen.
Thank you. And Cherrie, we have a question about, are you focused on certain types of writing, fiction versus nonfiction? And also, how can someone reach you to collaborate or to work together?
Okay, I'm not, I work with all genres, fiction, nonfiction, and I'm actually a poet, so I also work with poetry. The best way to reach me is I'm on Facebook. I have a Facebook business page, Cherrie Woods, or email me. I'm great with email. Still love my email at info@eclecticpr.com, and that's ECLECTICPR.com, Eclectic, or eclecticpr.com is my website. So
great. Thank you, guys.
I think email is the best, and I'm on all the social media networks under Cherrie Wood.
Thank you. Thank you. And so on behalf of the Black Ink Planning Committee, I want to thank our guests for coming and sharing their knowledge, their expertise, and their handles so that you guys can reach them. We have tables available in the lounge and the arena. Check out the arena to see our sponsors and engage with them as well and learn more about the authors. And we hope that you will stick around for the rest of the workshops during this festival. And thank you for supporting Black Ink. And we will see you guys soon.
Cherrie, don't hang up.
Ciao.